Ukrainians demonstrated their new capabilities by crippling Russian preparations for their spring offensive, Euromaidan Press reports. Ukrainians launched a massive F-16 airstrike campaign on Russian military targets, using the new Western jets' deadly capabilities to the maximum. Ukrainians demonstrated their new capabilities by crippling Russian preparations for their spring offensive. On the northern front, Ukrainians executed multiple precision strikes to disrupt Russian efforts. Near Grafivka, Russia's Belgorod Oblast, Ukrainians used an American GBU-62 JDAM to destroy a Russian border checkpoint being used to store ammunition and gather personnel. Geolocated footage also confirms several more hits on Russian positions, targeting and disrupting Russian force accumulations as Russians keep sending in more reinforcements to deal with the Ukrainian incursion into Belgorod. In Kursk, Ukrainian MiG-29s used French AASM hammer-guided bombs to target Russian force concentrations in Guevo and Goptarivka, preventing them from establishing footholds in these villages. The Ukrainian-French airstrike combination continued to devastate Russian efforts, targeting Russian drone operators' launching points and command posts in Tetkino, and finally destroying a critical bridge used by armored vehicles in Kursk. Euromaidan Press says these strikes disrupted the Russian command and control structure, preventing coordinated Russian assaults into Sumy and dooming them to small infantry group tactics that were destined to fail. Meanwhile, the strikes on Russian drone operators' outposts denied the Russians the ability to target Ukrainian troop movements on the Sumy-Sudza road. On the Donetsk and Luhansk front lines, Ukrainian airstrikes have aimed to alleviate the pressure on Ukrainian defenders in the hottest sectors of the front. Along the Pishchany funnel near Kupiansk, Ukrainian aircraft successfully struck two-story buildings full of Russian soldiers. In Solidar, north of Bakhmut, a Mavic 3 drone captured the impact of two GBU-62 JDAM bombs on Russian troop positions preparing for frontline deployment and assaults toward Siversk. Euromaidan Press recalls that at Pokrovsk, Ukrainians carried out precise strikes in Selidov and Novogeli-Zavetivka, targeting large buildings housing Russian soldiers and drone operators, collapsing the structures and eliminating everyone inside. Finally, in Velika Novosilka, reconnaissance drones guided AASM hammer bombs to hit buildings being used as command posts and gathering points for Russian soldiers. Notably, Ukrainian strike aircraft have been operating with increased confidence, bolstered by air-to-air fighter cover provided by the newly acquired F-16s and Mirage 2000s. With increased air-to-air and radar capabilities, this enhanced fighter support was used to engage enemy aircraft while allowing Ukrainian strike planes to focus on destroying their targets. At Kherson, this allowed Ukrainians to repeatedly target the command post of Russia's 81st Self-Propelled Artillery Regiment near Nechayev, resulting in the elimination of approximately 30 Russian officers. Euromaidan Press reports. After the Russians had replaced the killed commanders of the regiment, Ukrainian intelligence passed on the coordinates of their new command post. The footage shows Ukrainian bombs hitting the target on precise weak points with GBU-62 guided bombs, allowing them to penetrate and cause massive internal damage to the new command post, despite not even being bunker busters. Additionally, a MiG-29 delivered two AASM hammer bombs on a Russian company command post and a building housing Russian troops on the Dnipro riverbank. Overall, recent airstrikes reveal a clear Ukrainian focus on hidden troop concentrations and command centers, disrupting command structures and undermining Russian assaults before they can even begin. Bolstering Ukraine's aerial capabilities by delivering Western fighter jets and precision-guided munitions has allowed for a massive airstrike campaign against Russian targets.
Russian military personnel in Krasnodar tried to escape from the commandant's office and staged a riot, outraged that the commanders released several detainees for money, said a relative of a military personnel and a lawyer. The day before, on April 18, on the territory of the military commandant of the Krasnodar garrison and the territory of military unit 40304 on the street 3 Yatrudovaya, 3, in Krasnodar, more than 100 military personnel from different military units from different regions of the Russian Federation, recognized as voluntarily deserters, staged a riot. Some of them tried to escape. Astra told the relative of one of the servicemen from Sakhalin and the lawyer of 2 more servicemen who were detained in the territory. The incident happened yesterday because some of them were released for money. And they didn't come back in time. And the guys raised a riot. On what basis is someone released, who has money? We, for example, have no body. But we have no right to be here. Specifically, we, my husband, should be at home. And they started storming leadership. Why don't you let us go then? I know that some people there are generally kept with the category D, and some have no eyes, some have limbs, said Olga, whose husband has been kept in tents on the territory of the commandant's office in Krasnodar since December. And already on December 10th, he ended up in a mental institution from this commandant's office, because he felt bad there, because he can't be among the military, says Olga. She notes that the husband was diagnosed in a psychiatric clinic, and later assigned a fitness category, limited fitness. Also, in April 2025, the criminal case against the man was closed. They live there in tents. On the street. That is, when there were frosts in December, in January, in February, these are severe frosts, they were in tents. They drink everything there. My husband was beaten there 3 weeks ago, he was all blue, the woman adds. As told by ASTRA on the condition of anonymity, a lawyer representing the interests of 2 servicemen assigned to a unit in Krasnodar, some of them have been there for more than 6 months. According to her, they do not provide medical assistance to men, doctors are not allowed in part of the territory.
Я не знаю, мы говорили, что 100 человек там с изолятором.
The Russians will try to carry out some offensive operations. This was stated on air by the Ukrainian reserve major and veteran of the Russian-Ukrainian war, Alexei Getman. As the expert noted, the number of Russian occupation army on the front line has not changed. On the contrary, the number of personnel of the Russian Federation is gradually decreasing because their ability to attract new servicemen through mobilization and recruitment is less than what the Ukrainian armed forces destroy monthly. Even the average daily number of losses of Russians has already appeared, 1,250 occupiers, noted Getman. He stressed that the Russians not only cannot increase the number of personnel, but also have problems with the means that destroy the Ukrainian defense forces on a daily basis. Every month, the Russians lose up to 40,000 personnel. They can gain approximately the same number every month. In fact, this can be considered a negative balance. Therefore, the question arises: if the Russians cannot increase the number of personnel, then how can they conduct large-scale offensive operations? The same applies to equipment, which is also being destroyed on a large scale on the front line, he added. Earlier, another military expert, Ivan Stupak, stated that the Russian army does not have sufficient potential for a large-scale attack on all sections of the front line at once. According to the expert, an analysis of open sources shows that there is no significant accumulation of reserves along the entire 1,000-kilometer front line. To say that they have great opportunities along the entire front line with new forces and they can put pressure, I would not say that. These forces are not visible, Stupak emphasized. In addition, there are indications of a reduction in personnel in the Russian army. In particular, the military police, which previously performed secondary tasks at rear checkpoints, have begun to be transferred to the front lines. Although Russia stepped up the recruitment of contract soldiers in April, according to some sources, Moscow is able to recruit about 100 to 150 people every day. However, this is not enough to have a significant impact on the situation. They don't have enough people. They throw everyone to the front, the wounded, the lame, and the barefoot, the expert noted. The absence of a mass accumulation of equipment is also recorded. Mechanized assaults are rare, since the Russians take care of armored vehicles and use them only when there is a high probability of breaking through the Ukrainian defense.